Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David.
And I am Maddie B with the Countdown City Geekcast. And I don't have a can today, which I would love to pop, but we're doing bottles today. So let's go after it.
Well, I'm just Matt, so there's that. And I don't have a hat, so that sucks. But I'm here. Hello.
Yeah, and this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And yeah, Matt, it's great to see you back there, and as well as Matty B. So
Yeah. Fun times.
So a few things to talk about here. But before we get to that, we definitely want to thank our top tier Patreon subscribers. On the purple tier, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Dev McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel. On the red tier, Fenrir526, Matt Heath, Maya Morris. On the black tier, Maka Tawatala, Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, and Liam McCallion. Thank you so much for joining our Patreon and supporting the podcast as you do.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Liam.
for the really big news that kind of dropped today, which I was hoping there was going to be some big news that dropped, apparently the rumors and the hype and the speculation has increased once again for the actor who played Thrawn in Rebels, the animated show, to actually play him in the live action series. That actor being Lars Mikkelsen, the brother of Mads Mikkelsen. And of course, like I said, he voiced Thrawn. So there is a rumor. We do not know 100% confirmed that this is the actor that's going to play Thrawn in the Disney Plus series Ahsoka, but that's what we're hearing right now. And that is according to Bespin Bulletin. And they ran an article today, which I'm going to read here. It gives a little context on the actual story here. And it says in September, Cinelinx, who reported Esfandi's casting, who is the alleged character that's the actor that's going to play Ezra, is cast. His name is Esfandi. Was announced at D23. Not sure why, but I think we're all kind of in agreement that's going to be the actor. He said, or the Cinelinx site said, they'd heard conflicting things on who will be playing Thrawn, but most recently heard that it was Lars Mikkelsen who voiced the character in the animated series Star Wars Rebels. 6 weeks on from that claim, the editor-in-chief of the Ronin, Christopher Mark, is claiming that he has a reliable source working on Ahsoka that's informed them of Mikkelsen playing Thrawn in the upcoming series. They say looks like Ahsoka has indeed hired Lars Mikkelsen to play Thrawn in the series and will have his traditional white uniform in the streaming series, as I think we would all think. So, Maddie B, what are your thoughts on Lars Mikkelsen reprising his role as Grand Admiral Thrawn?
I think it's as it should be. It's the same way I felt about Iman, as Ezra, and it's very important. I hope the CGI, I hope their budget is good for that, so we can really bring Thrawn to life. But nobody knows this character more than him. The only real takeaway I have from this and this Ahsoka series is, and who I feel bad for more than anything, is Ashley Eckstein. I feel bad for her. Every time I get news about a character reprising the role, I feel bad for Ashley a little bit because she loves that Ahsoka character so much and was obviously replaced by Rosario. And it seems like a lot of other folks are reprising the roles, and so yeah, that was kind of my main takeaway. I love the Thrawn, and again, I feel bad for Ashley.
Well, I mean, she does have some. Does she have any efforts going on in the new show that's coming out? Tales of the Jedi. Do you think because Ahsoka's in that, and there's new content on Ahsoka's behalf, which is the character that she voices, isn't it reasonable to think that they would hire her at least for that project?
Oh, I know. I think it's totally possible. Yeah, maybe. You have Rosario Dawson right there. But it just in the sense of bringing a character that she spawned to life and not being able to be a part of it like the other actors of the show are going to be able to do. I feel bad for her a little bit, and you can tell she gets emotional even at panels. But it's just about Lars, I guess. But I'm very excited. I hope they bring all of those characters or the actors who started those roles to reprise them. I think it's great news.
Mm.
That's a really good question, Matt. Is Ashley Eckstein going to voice Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi? I don't think. I'm looking it up here. It looks like.
It would be a good bone to throw. Where it's not like Liam Neeson is going to voice Qui-Gon Jinn, so it'd be a good bone to throw
I
Ashley at
mean,
least.
she's been very active in the Star Wars community in the past few years with their new clothing line, and she's very active with like the
Yeah.
Disney parks and their mental outreach program and stuff like that. I know because she's from the area, so like she's around Orlando, Florida. At least for me, she's around Star Wars pretty often, and she's been pretty active in the past couple of years, I'd say.
Yeah,
in
that
Star Wars
story
community.
for Ashley Eckstein, it's actually on Star Wars Newsnet. It was posted on July 20th, 2022, and it does say, Ashley Eckstein does say, I am just beyond honored to step back in Ahsoka's boots and breathe life into her again for Tales of the Jedi. Dave Filoni promises me I would always be the voice of Ahsoka in animation, and I'm thrilled to return and so excited. The shorts are beautiful, the stories are wonderful, and I can't wait to share them with everyone. So there you go.
Well, it kind of just feels like we put a pie in our face for not knowing that information earlier, doesn't it?
No,
Well, I mean, it's
no, but it's good,
It's
and
just-
I think that Ashley would. You think if you asked her, do you think she would say that she didn't want to have that role as Ahsoka? And she does do all these mental reach out programs. But I remember specifically a Star Wars Celebration, her being very emotional about her reception and knowing that she wasn't going to be the one sort of reprising that role. So I just love her so much, and I love her character as Ahsoka so much. So anytime someone gets cast there, I always just feel for her a little bit. That's all.
and yeah, Maddie B, you said it's not like Liam Neeson is returning to do Qui-Gon Jinn. He actually is.
Oh, he
Liam
is?
Neeson
Gotcha.
is finally returning as Qui-Gon Jinn in his upcoming animated Star Wars show, Tales of the Jedi. As revealed at Star Wars Celebration, Neeson will voice Qui-Gon for one episode, while the actor's real-life son, Michael Richardson, will also be voicing the younger version of the character.
For sure. Yeah. So,
There
he's
you go.
going to do a little thing, but
Yeah.
the main character is going to be voiced by somebody else. Well, luckily it's his son. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think there was actually a story about how much he sounds like his dad. I want to say.
Do you think he practiced that? Like, how much can I sound like my
I
dad?
always sound like my father. Yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
kind
or,
of
I
like
mean, they could-
like Tom Hanks' brother making money off of his brother's success just by sounding somewhat like him, so it's not that much different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real interesting story. What Matt's referring to is Tom Hanks, all the merch and all the like toys where you pull the back of the string of the Woody from Toy Story. It's actually his brother's voice, and it sounds just like him.
And all of the recordings in the Toy Story Land and Disney World's Hollywood Studios, those are all like the voices you hear on all the rides that he's on, that you hear him on, all the animations that are there, and on the Disney Cruise Lines, there's some like animations there too, and you get to see him. But like, yeah, they're all Tim. I don't know what his name is.
Yeah. Tom is just like, hey, here, take this.
Yeah, he literally is, because his brother is more of a voice actor, and Tom was like, I'm too busy. And he wanted his brother to have work, so he was like, make my brother do it. He sounds just like me. He's a voice actor, and he was like, hell yeah, freaking come, let's go. And Disney was like, great, we don't have to pay you nearly as much as we were going to pay Tom Hanks, because you're not Tom Hanks.
Mhm.
But I mean, he still gets paid pretty great, and I know he has like royalties and stuff, so he's doing pretty well too, just not as much as Tom Hanks, for obvious reasons.
So like I said, we don't 100% know that Lars Mikkelsen will be Thrawn. I mean, we might get a huge curveball and get, I don't know, Michael Fassbender or someone like that. I don't know. But a few months ago, a fan did a mock-up of what Lars Mikkelsen would look like as Thrawn. Here it is right here. I'll show you on YouTube. Looks pretty good.
Not that hair,
he
though.
looks... Yeah, with the red eyes, the blue skin, the white suit. I mean, that's quintessential Thrawn right there.
I think you're going to get a very Rupert Friend Inquisitor type of vibe. Like, it doesn't look like Rupert Friend. He's going to be heavily prosthetics and a lot of CGI there to make him into Thrawn. But, it's we'll see what happens. I hope that that's the case, because it would make sense that even if he wasn't actually donning the suit, if he just voiced the character, I mean, that's a possibility.
I think they should slick his hair back. Yeah, no, he's got like a widow's peak, and he's got like a receding hairline. Admiral Thrawn does. I mean, Josh Nicholson does too, but in a different way.
Yeah, like I said, this is just a fan mock-up. So I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
we
I'm
have
just trying to
no
picture it with
clue.
like some hair prosthetics and I don't know. Maybe some editing post, like to elongate his face, because I remember Thrawn's face being like so narrow and long. But they're not going to go through that trouble just to make it somewhat like an animation. Obviously, they didn't want to do that with the Inquisitor in Obi-Wan Kenobi, so why would they do it here? Right, guys? You guys support that, right? You guys support that comment I just made, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Come on,
So-
you guys know what I'm talking about. The Grand Inquisitor's head being so
Yeah.
big.
No, I mean
You
he
know?
definitely did not look like the Grand Inquisitor. That's why actually I bought into that fan theory for so long that there was
Right.
that wasn't the actual Grand Inquisitor, because
Right.
it's just a job title. It's all the Grand Inquisitor is. It's not a name, so it's just whoever has that role. So I thought he was going to be killed, and we would get the actual Grand Inquisitor. So
The
but yeah,
one we know, you know.
yeah. But they did a lot of funny things in those series, like the lightsaber blades were really skinny and stuff like that. So they changed the aesthetics a bit for that. Maybe they were just
Yeah,
trying
the
to ground
animation
it.
was like it was like adjusted between like Clone Wars into Rebels, and then Rebels coming in and having involvements in the live action world of Star Wars. But like it's also like the same with like cosplay. Like if you wanted to like cosplay like a clone trooper, there's an animated version of it and there's also a real world version of it. And they're different. And there's distinct things that you take from the animated that you don't bring into the real life. And it's the same with production. They're like, oh, we're gonna hit some of these key points. And it's like that with books. Like with Harry Potter, it's a classic example of like Lord of the Rings. The books are way different than the movie version of it. Doesn't mean you don't love the movie, but Thrawn's not going to be exactly what we want him to be, just like the Grand Inquisitor wasn't. So I think we all should just like be lucky that we're getting a guy that may have voiced him. That'd be pretty cool. Because his voice is iconic.
What we'd really be lucky for is just a good show. Because I don't know, Star Wars is post George Lucas is a little tough, but we'll see. That's just my opinion, but hopefully all we get is just a good damn show. And
should we, David? Should we ask his opinions on Andor so far yet? Or
I think a few podcasts ago, I think he voiced him. I believe Matty B approves of the show, but
okay, you talked about it all. Okay,
yeah. I think it's pretty good. I think it's too long.
I like meeting people with like diversing, ideas of Star Wars than me or like our podcast, because not all of us enjoy all of Star Wars equally. It's never going to work like that. So I just like hearing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And we'll get into it on the Andor preview for sure. My feelings directly about the show. I don't hate it. I can tell you that.
Okay. Well, that's great.
So segueing into the next topic I want to talk about. So there's two things I really don't like about what's going on with Andor. And it's been something that a lot of people haven't been talking about, which is kind of interesting. But a lot of other streaming services are actually doing. So with Disney Plus, with the new Star Wars shows, they all drop at midnight, but midnight Pacific time. So that is 2 a.m. Central Time, and it's 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So no one's really going to stay up. No logical, sane person's going to stay up every single night, except the people that are in our bubble will stay up to watch these shows. But when you look at other shows such as House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, those shows air before midnight. I know House of the Dragon, I think it drops at 8 p.m. Central Time. So
yeah, I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern. Yep.
So people can actually watch the show, watch an after show, go online, go on social media, talk about it, talk with their friends, even have like a get together and watch the show together and have this whole kind of huge gathering, social discussion, and we can talk about the show at a decent hour and everyone's kind of on the same page. So I'm kind of surprised that there's not some type of like popular petition out there for that to be the case for Disney Plus. So my question to you guys is, why isn't Disney Plus dropping these shows in like a prime time hour? I have maybe a theory, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. So what's the reasoning? What do you think? Matty B?
I just think they're stubborn as hell. I think they have a plan and they're sticking to it, and they don't really care. In a post-COVID world, because what you were really talking about, David, is water cooler talk. So when something comes out on a Sunday or a Tuesday or whatever day it is, the next day everyone will gather around. It's water cooler talk. If you're at work, you're 9 to 5, whatever, and talk about the show, and then that would drive in new viewers, and then that would increase ratings the next week. That's how the old format worked. I think Disney, for whatever reason, and maybe it's true. I haven't seen the numbers, the real numbers, so I don't know. Maybe they think that this works. Maybe whatever time it's dropping in another country or whatever it might be is really helping them drive numbers. But I think the main reason for us US folks is they're just stubborn as hell.
Matt?
I concur a lot with what my boy Matty B over here be saying, but ironically, it all boils down to the fact that Disney thinks themselves a different type of streaming platform than things like HBO Max and Amazon Prime are doing right now, with like the Lord of the Rings series, and then the other one. I can't remember.
What do you mean
House
you
of
can't
Dragon.
remember? The best show ever?
House of Dragon. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Anyways, but like I remember like growing up, like every day on Sunday night, there would be like the new Walking Dead episode that would come out, and it would always come out at like 9 p.m. And then they had the Talking Dead series that would come on after, and then they would talk about the show. And then the next day on the Monday, like you just said, the water cooler talk where they'll meet up and talk about it. So there is this iconic way that comes out with like live, when it came out on live television. But Disney wants to reinvent or change the way that people perceive the idea of streaming service being different than live television. Cause I don't know, because it feels like when something airs, it drops at the beginning of that 24 hours. So like, oh, we're going to drop it on November 16th at 12 a.m. So like 11:59 it drops, kind of like a sale or something you can buy online or a deal. I don't understand why it's different because it's all cinema, it's all film, it's all part of the entertainment field. So why aren't they like making the buzz about it by having it at a time that's more reasonable? I mean, I'll never truly understand it. There's some sort of marketing ploy hidden deep inside of it that I don't know if I fully believe or understand, but I think it's dumb. I don't like the idea of staying up till 3 a.m. to watch a TV show.
Right.
And yeah, it comes out as earliest as possible on Wednesday, or like basically really late Tuesday night if you're gonna stay up and watch it. But like no one's crazy enough to do that. So like you have any time between the time you wake up and go to work to the time that you get home from your 9 to 5 job, like Matt Abu was saying, to watch it. So other people may have had the opportunity to watch it, whereas you haven't. But in the old world, where live television, everyone has seen it, so everyone could talk about it. But where the way we have it now, it's if you had enough time in your day to watch it before, and you always are kind of fighting and racing to watch it just because you don't want anyone else to spoil it. So like
Right.
even if I don't stay up until 3 a.m. on a Tuesday night, I have to either avoid social media like normal people do, just to not get it spoiled, or find time in my day on my Wednesday where I'm at work to watch it so that no one spoils it for me so I can talk about it. Whereas if everyone had seen it all at the same time at a relatively good time, we could all talk about it. So I don't get it.
Right. And I think House of the Dragon has proven that point out. I mean, it's become a huge talking point in our culture, our pop culture. And they do the show. They air it at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. They do an after show. They do a preview of the next episode. Rings of Power does that as well. I would love to get a preview of the next episode of Andor. But the other thing I have a gripe about is the fact that Andor is only about 30 minutes long. It's one of those things where we all thought, I think, collectively as a fandom, that once we're going to get these Star Wars TV shows, they were all going to be like an hour long. And every time a new show is announced or is about to drop, everyone's thinking, oh, it's going to be an hour long. Oh, it's going to be an hour. No, that they're usually around 30 to 45 to maybe sometimes 53 minutes long worth of actual show because they do include the credits. So that's another kind of weird thing. But of course, you put your producing hat on, of course, and your shareholder hat on. You want to kind of cut this up as much as possible to keep the subscriber base going.
Yeah, and there's no content between now and then. So if you're subscribed to Star Wars, if you're subscribed to Disney Plus for Star Wars, you don't have anything until Ahsoka comes out, right? So there's
Tales of the Jedi that's going to drop on the 26th of this month, and then Bad Batch is going to drop
beginning of next year
in January.
Yeah, and I think Andor is supposed to just like be the backfill for the whole thing.
Yeah, after that will be Mandalorian season 3, then Ahsoka, I believe. So they've kind of set it up to where you're going to have back-to-back Star Wars stuff happening.
It's kind of crazy to think, because at first, remember before we saw the runtimes, and I remember being on here with you, and we were talking about if they're an hour long, that's 24 hours of content, and like how like crazy of a undertaking that would be, and like boy, the things you would have to flesh out during that time. But now that it's only 30 minutes, now it seems like it's like, oh, okay, well, I gotta wait all this time, for you to piecemeal out the story a little bit. I think they might have shot themselves in the foot. And when it comes to the time zones, I was looking at this. I'd like to see, and maybe hopefully we can find some numbers. Maybe this will be a project for the next show. If we could look at the numbers, the streaming numbers, not Nielsen, like what the streaming platforms are saying that they're reporting between Hot D and Andor, because for example, if we're Central Time in San Antonio at 9 p.m. when Hot D drops for San Antonio, it's 3 a.m. in London. And the reason why I chose London is because London would also probably be very interested in a medieval story, and of course they're going to be interested in a Star Wars story. Almost all the characters have English accents. So then if we look at a 2 a.m. San Antonio time, which would be when we get Andor, it's 8 a.m. in London, meaning more viewers are going to be aware of it. And those are two really good countries to pull streaming from. So I'd be very interested to see the difference between those two and those two strategies of dropping at 9 p.m. and getting most of the U.S. viewers if you're Hot D, and then dropping at 2 a.m. If you're Andor, and getting most of the European viewers at 8 a.m. when they can tune in. Most people are awake at that time. A lot of people work from home now. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see what that strategy looks like.
Yeah, and I just looked it up, in House of the Dragon does drop at 2 a.m. in the UK. So they have our issue, and then it's the opposite for them for Star Wars, because I know we have a lot of patrons that tell me, like, no, we don't want it moved because we can watch it at 8 a.m. or something like that, and just watch it, then go to work and not be spoiled. So it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, Disney could hold it off for region specific, but then you have the issue of
the leaks,
VPNs, and that whole thing.
And Twitter, you couldn't log on to Twitter if you didn't want spoilers.
Yeah, that's another thing too. But I mean, House of the Dragon seems to be doing really well doing that, and then with the after show being an hour long, that was just something that I kind of wish that Star Wars would do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I will stay up for certain things, though. I remember, actually, no, because the only reason why I stayed up for the Kenobi premiere of the first 2 episodes is because they dropped it early. And because the Star Wars Celebration was going on. So they wanted the first 2 episodes, I believe it was, to come out for the next day of Celebration. So the fan hype was crazy the next day. But no, I don't think I would stay up for any show. The Sopranos to me is the best show of all time. If The Sopranos was premiering right now, it's my favorite show. If it was premiering right now, I would not stay up till 2 a.m. to watch it. But that's just me. But I think you lose a lot of people dropping it that late. I think they should,
Yeah, for sure. I wish they would change it. So Tony Gilroy, he did an interview with The Wrap, and he spoke quite a bit with them, and I'm about to read everything he has said in regards to shooting, the volume, what kind of leash he was on from Lucasfilm and the higher ups. So Tony Gilroy did an interview with Rep. Here's what he had to say. In regards to Lucasfilm giving him notes, Tony Gilroy said, "We've had very little adult supervision along the way. No kidding. We are very much left to our own devices here. It's a very small brain trust of people that figure out what to do." He also says it also is absolutely canonically pure. This is the moment as the Empire is absorbing everything else as they're spreading. One of the things they're doing is nationalizing all these corporate planets. By the time we're done, we'll have shown all the ways that the Empire, with all of its fascistic appetites, is being satisfied around the galaxy in every variety of way, environmentally, corporately, economically, socially, every way. And it was a cool way to do that. He also says it's a pretty simplistic tool in regards to the volume stagecraft with some pretty serious limitations. It's a box, you can go in it, but you can't go past a certain point. It's very expensive, but the main thing about it is you have a completely different workflow. We're doing 12 hours of 190 speaking parts along the way. We're going from an abundant show. We're going for an abundant show. And economically, it's a disaster to do that. And you can't mix. You can't sort of say, oh, I'm going to be a vegetarian for the next 2 days, and then I'm going to go back to eating meat. You have to commit. It's not a disagreement or an argument or a rejection. It's just a matter of workflow. In regards to using cheap fan service as a tool, he says popping up is not something we're doing. We're not doing any popping up. If people are meant to be there, I mean, it's logical to assume that if we're going to go to Yavin at the end, and there'd be who's in Yavin. And it's logical to assume that everyone knows Forrest Whitaker's in here now, as Saul Guerrero figures prominently into Rogue. But no, there won't be anything gratuitous. If people are there, they're there for a reason. So those are his thoughts. I know we talked about the whole fan service and Easter egg thing, but I think that was really what he was trying to convey. The whole kind of Dr. Evans and Ponda Baba popping up in Rogue One, that was just gratuitous fan service that made really no logical sense, that didn't really fit into the story. That was just giving like a tip of the cap to those characters in A New Hope. So as we've seen in the previous episodes, we've seen a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of connective tissue. And of course, we're going to get Saul Guerrero hopefully Wednesday at 2 a.m. Central Time. But yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on Tony Gilroy's approach to Andor? Matty B?
I mean, I think it's good. I'm still stick to my guns that Tony Gilroy wanted to make a spy action thriller. Kathleen Kennedy convinced him to do it in a Star Wars sandbox, and that's what we've gotten. I think that his definition of fan service just means that you're bringing back old characters, and I don't necessarily agree with that definition. But he hasn't done too much of it. I mean, the artifacts and stuff that were in that room, I noticed a few of them. But I mean, that's not like your casual fan service. I don't think. I don't know if I would exactly say that's fan service. I mean, you kind of have to know a little bit for that to really kind of hit you, and even do some further research on it. But I do like his talk about the workflow and it being so different now in this day and age of how you film shows, how these things are working now, and how difficult it is, especially, if you get this type of directing role. You've been doing directing for a very, very long time. And once you get these huge Disney contracts and all this new technology and all these things and these different types of budgets, and you're like, I don't really want to have these conversations. I'm just trying to look through my scope and shoot a show. And so all of this is kind of new for me. And it's a difference in the workflow. I thought that was very insightful for him to kind of come through with that. But I'm still of the idea that the people, and especially the ones in charge, are just a little bit disconnected from what our definitions of things are and what we kind of look at, the lens that we look at things as fans. And so there's a little bit of that in there too. And but yeah, he didn't rub it in our faces. I thought it was a good interview, and I liked what I took away from it. But it doesn't mean that the product that we got is necessarily. It doesn't change my view on that at all.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
I have argument that aligns pretty well with Maddie B's, but it has different merits. As you know, David, I come at a lot of Star Wars from a logical and technical standpoint. So a lot of the ways that I like my Star Wars to connect needs to make logical sense. Um, at specific times, why are specific characters showing up in the plot, and where do they exist in the Star Wars universe, and why are they showing up on this little timeline that we get to see? Because there's a lot of Star Wars that we don't get to see that exists in the universe. But I think what Tony Gilroy is doing as a writer is what the Star Wars universe needs from a technical aspect, and the way that he is writing out the plot lines and the way that he's delivering it. I do not agree with the way that he is portraying the Star Wars universe in this action spy thriller, as Maddie B puts it. I think that he, as a writer, and Kathleen Kennedy saw this in him, that he is the kind of writer that Star Wars needs, like I said. But she also got something that she needed for the universe, but she also lost a little bit because Tony Gilroy, he doesn't come from like that much of a Star Wars background, because like he has like his idea of fan service to the Star Wars universe, and prior to him being in the Star Wars universe, he wasn't really a fan of it. He didn't really want much to do with it. And I don't know, want is the right word to use, but he wasn't a part of the universe. He didn't really, you know what I mean? He wasn't a fan of it. He wasn't.
He's definitely on the record saying he was not a fan of Star Wars.
He doesn't connect with it like the fans do. So his idea of fan service is flawed. The way that he writes the stories for the Star Wars universe while not being a fan of it is, I don't know. I don't understand, because like I like the idea that he's an outside perspective, someone who's not a fan of Star Wars working on Star Wars. I understand it from a logical standpoint. But there's just something in the Star Wars universe that only Star Wars fans can understand and feel. And there's also a logical aspect involving the existence of characters with the creation of new characters that he's making that have to interweave with the workings of the Star Wars universe, because it is a vast universe with thousands of systems and billions of people and tons of storylines that already pre-exist. And you have this person coming in who has no proper prior recollection of these existences, and he's going to build a story out of it, but he doesn't know a whole bunch about coming into it. You know what I mean? So it almost feels kind of like an insult to the Star Wars fan base, but I understand why Kathleen Kennedy thought it was good idea from her perspective. So I understand it from a technical writer, directorial, production aspect. But as a fan of the universe of Star Wars, I didn't see it, and still to this day don't necessarily see it as being what's best for Star Wars. But it's Star Wars content, and I have to love it. I think those are the rules, right? So yeah.
No, that's not the case. That's a fool's world. But honestly, what Kathleen Kennedy thinks is it's the same thing she did to the Jurassic Park universe, where she forgot what Steven Spielberg's storytelling, which made us love, especially that first movie so much. But she all of a sudden she had these sound files for a T-Rex screaming or like a jump scare. So, for example, in the last episode of Andor, I found myself getting a little bit excited because the TIE fighters were flying through the valley and that
the scorching sound.
And she thinks that's what the fans like. To her, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll play the sound. I'll get a jump," because she can see in the screenings with the test audience that, oh wow, they really get excited about that. Realizing that the whole reason why we wanted to show up in the first place was a George Lucas-esque story about family, about even religion to a point, and a lot of these things that George Lucas really tied into the hero's journey that Andor isn't exactly doing, although I think that it can. It has enough time to build this out. I think one of the problems with Andor is, again, just the runtime. It's just we're getting piecemealed out so much of a little bit at a time. But just having the sound files for a TIE fighter screaming isn't enough to keep the fans involved. And so and I'm there, and I don't think it's a terrible show. I think it's a pretty good show. It's a great sci-fi show. I just don't know if it's like, I don't know. I don't leave from that being like, oh wow, I want to immediately jump off Tatooine and just hop into the mix.
Well, I agree with you about the part about hopping off a Tatooine, because I'm really tired of seeing that dang stupid dust sandball. But yeah, there's a lot of Star Wars out there that we want, and then we'll probably never get. But there's a lot out there that they can make storylines off of, but also save and make money off of, because I don't know.
But do you think part of them is kind of like, probably like, hey, okay, George Lucas made something so rare and weird, and we can't work with his weird brain because we don't have another weird brain like that. So what are we going to do? We have to do everything that we can do to build something relevant off of what he made in a way that we can reproduce without him. And that's a very difficult task to do, because George Lucas is a weird brain. He's a weird brain dude. And those types of people are very rare. And so they're like, well, this property's worth all this money. That's all they care about, really, at the end of the day. They don't care about what we think about it. They care about making money. So they're like, what can we do to pull this as far as we can away for the young kids who don't really know those old films, to make them love Star Wars? So once our generation gets bored with it and we move on, they still making the money and moving forward. But, that's a business conversation. I'll go get my tie and put it on.
Yeah, let's get you in a meeting.
So New York City Comic-Con happened, and the headliner for New York City Comic-Con was Oscar Isaac. And unfortunately, he couldn't make it to any of the Star Wars celebrations except for, I believe he was there in 2015, 2017. But I'm not sure if he signed autographs, took photos. And I think this is the first time he's done that. And here's a few photos that I grabbed off the interwebs here. So you can see there clearly, if you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, there's a plexiglass that they placed in between the two people there, Oscar Isaac and the fan.
COVID.
Unfortunately,
I said it. David, I said the word. Oh no!
Yeah, I heard you. So
I said it.
The first few fans that took a picture with him were actually hugging Oscar Isaac, and they didn't have the plexiglass in between.
What?
And from what I saw online was the simple fact that they were overbooked somehow. So then that's when they installed the plexiglass and put it between Oscar and
they got to make it go
fan.
faster by less physical touch.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
at no other place in the world is class more represented than the airport and a Comic-Con. If you get your tickets late, then you get the plexiglass. The other guys, they get to hug him. If you show up late,
I feel like they started doing that pretty fast. I feel like there might have been like a couple dozen people that might have gotten to meet him face to face.
Can we go back to the shoot? Can we go back to the first picture, David, please? Can we go back to the first picture?
Yeah. Take it back.
Okay, so what is this?
He's force choking her.
Oscar Isaacs doesn't have the Force.
Yeah, but she really wants him to choke her for some reason.
So this is. I mean, this is just an odd request. That's like you. I mean, what the heck is going on in this photo? And I love Oscar Isaac, and I love this fan. Don't get me wrong. I love you both. I'm not hating.
This is great.
But this would be like getting a picture. It's like, oh boy, I can't wait to meet Han Solo. Here, Force choke me. Or freeze me in carbonite.
That's not on your mind, because that's on my mind.
Like, what the heck is going on in that photo? But anyway,
you don't go to Comic-Con and get a little bit like, into the idea of a costume that walked by. Like, oh my God, how many Slave Leias are we gonna see today? What?
I was smelling Ewan McGregor when I took a picture of him. I really was. I was smelling him, and he smelled great.
David, did you vet this guy? Did you smell him too, David? Did you smell him?
I don't think I smelled anything. When I saw Ewan McGregor twice, I was just like trying to like factor in and like do all the mathematical calculations in my head that this was like an actual real person in front of me, and it was actual Ewan McGregor. And then he started like talking to me. Yeah, that was a lot for my brain.
I remember Dominic Pace smelling pretty good when I first met him in
Did
Anaheim. I remember him smelling good in that lobby. I was like, wow.
I have a bad sense of smell.
Their aroma has changed since you came into the area, sir. Yeah. Dominic Pace smells good.
So yeah, Oscar Isaac, and let's welcome in James Ferreira. He's
hello.
The podcast.
I'm Oscar Isaac.
Howdy, partner.
Nice to meet you. Just kidding.
So yeah, we were saying Oscar Isaac attended New York Comic Con, and James, I don't know if you can attest to this. Was that his first time where he signed photos and did photo ops? I think it was.
I believe
right?
it is, because I haven't seen any pictures prior to this of him at an event like that. So I think this is probably his first time doing a con.
Yeah. So
isn't it also but is this a potential for us moving forward? I remember maybe it was 2021 or 2022, there were some stories circulating that Oscar Isaacs got a little turned off by Star Wars right at first, but now he was reopening the idea of potentially doing Star Wars again. And now all of a sudden we see him at a Comic-Con, which he hasn't been at before. Is this maybe testing the waters to see if he could return into that role? Because it is kind of odd. He doesn't do Comic-Cons. We didn't hear anything through COVID except for that little bit of, hey, I'm thinking about I would put my foot back in the water, dip a toe. And now we're seeing him at Comic-Cons.
I don't think in this case. I think in this case he more or less wanted to get paid, first of all. And I think New York Comic Con said he was going to be the headliner, so he was the headliner. And I think they paid him even more for that. And also you can't forget that Oscar Isaac is Moon Knight now, and he's going to make another appearance as Moon Knight, and he got predominantly Marvel fans to show up. And to go to your point about Oscar Isaac talking about reappearing in Star Wars universe, he did an interview where he said the interviewer asked him if he would return, and he blatantly said, if I need to buy another house, yeah, sure, like half jokingly. But I think that if the script is right, if the director's right, if the actors are right, I think for sure he would return. And then we have that big opportunity now, more so than we had in the past, for the trilogy, the last trilogy that just happened, to continue on with John Boyega and Daisy Ridley and Oscar Isaac, and bring them back and continue that story.
Man, as much as like I want that to happen, it feels like it's never gonna happen. It feels like that trilogy will never happen. And if it does happen, I'm talking 2035 or something. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna happen way down the road.
Yeah, well, Daisy's out, right? I mean, she hates it because she got lied to. And then Finn hates it because
where did you hear that?
Where did you hear that?
They were all lied to about the script of the movies, and Finn hates it too. They
weren't lied to. They were going to do. You're talking about Duel of the Fates, is that correct?
No, I'm talking about the entire role of what Rey was supposed to be, what Finn was supposed to be. All of that changed through Return of the Jedi. Not Return of the Jedi, but what was the second movie in the sequel trilogy?
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. Yeah. And then all of that changed. And then there was so much confusion going on. The story got all lost. Finn's character, I think, was supposed to have a completely different arc than he originally had. I don't think you would ever get Daisy Ridley back in that role. I don't think you would ever get the actor who played Finn back into that role.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Duel of the Fates, it all flowed pretty well. I mean, Duel of the Fates, the script that was leaked was not the final script. I mean, there was still stuff they were working out, but Finn's journey and where he ends up in Duel of the Fates makes a lot of sense in that he's a leader. He's leading a rebellion on Coruscant with Rose. And it's like, there it is. There's the character development from him. And then there is a moment where which is really weird because it happened in the first book of the High Republic. But there's a moment where everybody knows what Rey's doing and they all kind of tune into what Rey's thinking. And so that was like Finn also reaching out with the Force, telling her, be strong, Ray, be strong. It would have been a really cool thing. I just think with how what happened with Duel of Fates, what happened with Rise of Skywalker, yeah, I could see why they were all kind of like, it didn't quite pan out the way we thought it was going to pan out. I could see them kind of doing that. But like David said, if there's a good script, yeah, maybe they'll jump on board. And I'm pretty sure Disney has something. Like, you know what I mean? Like they signed something and then was like, oh, by the way, if we ever need you to come back, you're gonna come back. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Part of me thinks that there is.
I was thinking when he was talking about dipping his toe back in the water that he was like there was going to be like a Poe like origin story, kind of like a solo type story, and that he would do that. I don't see him getting Daisy back. I mean, hasn't Daisy even talked about like she can't get hired for anything?
Hey, don't you dare mention Solo in front of Kathleen Kennedy. She's never going to do that again. She learned her lesson.
Daisy, she's gotten a few gigs here and there.
Well, just about her vocalizing from her opinion, her interviews that she's given is that I don't think she really enjoyed it, and I don't think John Boyega definitely didn't. But you know, if they do, sometimes enough time passes where they get over it emotionally with certain movies that we've seen this in the past, where they'll be like, I want to get back at this sort of thing. I want to get what I wanted out of it.
I mean, look what happened with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. Like when they did those movies, and even Ewan McGregor said many times, like the love really wasn't there when we did those first movies.
They hated Hayden.
Yeah, and everybody hated Hayden Christensen. Hated him back in the and now it's like everybody wants Hayden Christensen back. Everybody wants Ewan McGregor back, and it's that may happen. And like I said, this is not going to be until 2035, 2032, where there's going to be a moment where we're going to be like, oh my gosh, they're bringing the three of them back. They're going to bring back Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley for Star Wars, and they're excited to do this. I don't know. I liked how the Rise of Skywalker. I enjoyed it. I liked how it went. I like how it ended, and it's like, to do more, like what's the next step? Like what can they do next? That would
listen, another Star Killer base, but this one's bigger. This one's bigger.
2 planets,
and it has
together
a whole solar system.
It has no thermal exhaust vents though. No, none of those. And
but isn't it funny how like when people talk about like toxic fan bases, I think a lot of times what they think of that, their definition of that, and it could be as well as just like hating on everything online. But sometimes I look at it as like a toxic like relationship. For example, like you're really interested in a girl at first, and then you go out on your first date. Let's call that the prequel trilogy. You're like, hey, I really love the idea of going on this date, and then things get a little too hot and heavy, and you're like, you know what? I'm really busy right now, and then you don't really want to talk to him that much anymore. But then, like a year or two down the road, you're like, hey, maybe we should give this a shot again. And that's kind of how Star Wars fans are with things. Like that's how they are with the prequel trilogy. Well, we hate this, and then you come back now, and it's like, oh, give it to me, give it to me.
Really? It's just giving it to you.
You do have a point though, because even when Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi came out, those weren't as loved as they are now. Like we look back at those movies as like, oh my gosh, the trilogy was amazing. But at the time,
for sure,
Empire and Return of the Jedi were kind of, people were like, what the hell is this? This isn't Star Wars. And then now look at the prequels. You have a whole generation of fans who are like, the prequels, that is Star Wars. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like that's cool.
And we have an addiction to nostalgia as well. I think Star Wars fans have an addiction to nostalgia.
We can't help it.
Yeah. And sometimes the dope right now isn't hitting like it used to. You know what I mean?
I think
yes, I do, Medi B.
I think
I understand you.
And I always like to say that there's a whole generation out there who watched The Force Awakens first and who fell in love with Star Wars. And so that is their Star Wars.
My 8-year-old nephew. Yeah, he's where I was when the prequel trilogy came out.
perfect
little bit
age,
older
right?
than that. But like, yeah, he's experiencing Star Wars with that coming first, and then I taught him, and he already watched like all the other stuff too, and he's watched the Clone Wars since then. But he grew up watching those movies because in 2015 he was like 4 or 5. No,
I still can't
math
believe
is
we're
hard.
almost 7 years away from The Force Awakens. Like that happened 7 years ago. We're almost a
That's crazy,
decade.
man.
Yeah,
Like that flew by really quick.
Yeah,
crazy.
it was those C word years. We lost like 3 years there.
Oh, that's
And
right. The C
yeah,
word kind of took over. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. And so it seems like it was only 4 years ago.
You're right. You're right. I think about it that way. But Oscar Isaac being there at Comic-Con, that's awesome. And I hope he goes to more, like he's at Celebration. He does, autographs, pictures. I mean, I think he would draw in a lot of people if he were to show up at Star Wars Celebration. He would, yeah. And then it would be really cool if Daisy Ridley and John Boyega also did that. If the three of them were at Celebration signing autographs and taking pictures, I honestly think nobody would be going to any of the panels. They would all be in line waiting for those autographs.
How much do you think that group photo with Daisy, Oscar, and John be? Like
I don't know, but I'd be willing to
$1,000?
go in on that. If you want to get a group going,
A little over 1,000 probably for all
I'd say
three of them.
I'd say $1,250 for all three of those.
What do you think, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, that's minimum.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, that's,
$1,500 will take
expensive.
away the plastic screen in between us all.
Yeah,
But that would just be cool if you walked into a room and there's the three of them: Oscar Isaac, Daisy Ridley, and John Boyega. You get to take a picture with them. And
I would pay whatever it was. I can tell you that.
I would pay a lot. I would pay stupid money for that picture.
Well, I love Daisy Ridley and I love John Boyega a lot, and so I mean I would pay even if all three of them were together. I mean I would probably drop $2,000 if it was like photo op and autograph $2,000.
That yeah,
If I got both of those, I would drop $2,000 for sure.
that sounds like a good thing. And we'll see. Maybe they'll show up to London next year.
Well, eventually,
Yeah, but
they're gonna need
imagine
money.
that
They'll
like
show up somewhere
2K
some
times
point.
like 800 or like 1,000 people.
Well,
over
they make
multiple days.
stupid money. I
They
won't
make
talk.
dumb money.
I won't talk
Ugh.
about this on air, but I talked to a handler of a particular big guest at a particular Comic-Con that happened here recently, and she gave just a little bit of insight as to what they got, and I can tell you it is stupid how much money that they make. But actually,
for a while.
but
We'll
also
talk after the podcast.
they get they just get a fee. They don't get like a percentage of what the sales do. So like they get a fee to show up, and then the Comic-Con makes all the money after that. So it doesn't matter how many more people show up. It's like they already got their fee to be there, and they have to be there for a certain amount of time.
I've
And
thought about
then-
making a career out of this. Like do some like small
Novel.
work and like a big project for like maybe like 5 years, and then like just live off of going to cons for like the next 2 decades.
Yeah, well, talk to Corey Feldman. He
You
can
could-
tell you when he
yeah.
still shows up. Here.
I mean, that's a pretty good plan if you want to travel the world. I mean, yeah, you could go to a bunch of different spots, see the world.
I gotta get on the screen first. We'll figure that out. We'll go from here to there.
You'll be there soon, Matt. You'll be there soon. No.
We'll get there.
So,
One
but,
day.
but continuing on the Oscar Isaac topic, we all know that he's really good friends with Pedro Pascal, and there's a question posed to him. He did a panel where they had fans come up to mics and asking him questions, and the one that got out was one in reference to Pedro Pascal, and he talked about their friendship, and he didn't really talk much about Star Wars, but this picture also emerged. It's him with the two Mandos.
Oh,
nice.
So, yeah, that's Lateef Crowder if you're watching on YouTube on the left, and then Brendan Wayne on the right, that both play Din Djarin when Pedro Pascal's out in the suit. So there's an interesting meeting right there.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
They all kind of look like they all know each other pretty well.
Yeah,
Like,
what venue?
you know what I
is
mean?
this? Does anyone know this venue? I don't know it.
I mean, that has to be the
New York City
York
Comic
Comic-Con.
Con, wherever that's held at.
Okay.
So
Wow.
interesting.
Wow.
they all met up, and
I noticed how Pedro was not here.
Yeah,
no,
the more I'm finding out, the more I'm realizing Pedro Pascal is not in the suit a lot in the
No.
Mandalorian. Like the
got
behind
a
the
lot of
scenes of the
voice.
Book of Boba Fett, I was like, I don't think he even showed up on set.
No, he's a voice actor unless
Yeah.
because I mean, why would you? And honestly, that makes sense though. Like, why would Pedro
They have money,
Pascal,
man.
when your character is like the law for him basically is to not take his helmet off. We got that scene with Baby Yoda, but I mean, why have Pedro Pascal and why have to pay him all that money to be on set all the time if you're just going to cover up his face? It doesn't make any sense. You throw him in a voice acting booth, and then every once in a while, if he has to take his helmet off, then you catch that scene with him. But I mean,
He's
again,
like the James Earl Jones of the Mandalorian, but he has a good face too. Not that James doesn't,
Yeah,
like, but like they use his face too. You know,
damn, that ricochet shot at James Earl Jones. I mean,
Poor
you know,
guy.
that hey, it's okay. He just retired
I
from Darth
do
Vader.
have a
It's
story
fine.
about Pedro Pascal that I cannot say on here though.
Does it have something to do with your pronunciation of his first name?
Yes, Pedro Pascal.
Okay.
I have a source who told me something about that, and I'll tell you afterward.
is
But
it
yeah,
what I
was
heard
like,
too?
I don't know, maybe.
This is a Patreon
maybe.
podcast. Get on Patreon right now.
But
if
yeah,
you
when
want to
I
become a
heard that, I was
Patreon
like,
member,
that makes a lot more sense now. And I'm not going to say what it was. But yeah, Oscar Isaac is Moon Knight season 2. Do we know if that's going to happen or not?
that was a question that was posed on a panel he did, and he said he didn't have any official information to share.
They did well. I'm sure if it can, they will.
He turned
Oh,
around
yeah,
and
for
Kevin
sure,
Feige
for
was
sure.
in the back just staring at him, and he was like,
Yeah.
okay. I don't
What
know.
What do you think about the walk across the aisle?
Oh.
It's like, do we want all of our Star Wars characters to also be Marvel characters, even though they're under the same umbrella as Disney? Do you guys like people walking on across the aisle like that?
I mean, it's happening. I think because we lost David. Hopefully,
Yeah.
he comes
well,
back.
tell me from this way. Do you care if DC hops over to Marvel, like actors like that?
Well, that's what I was going to get
That's
to.
completely different, though.
There's so many actors in Hollywood that are in the Marvel universe. It's getting hard to not find any who are not in the Marvel universe. Just like when Harry Potter came out, there was this whole funny thing where they were like, every British talented, amazing actor is going to be in Harry Potter. And
Yeah,
it was the case, kind of amazing actors and actresses were in Harry Potter.
even Jude Law's in the universe now. So
Yeah, exactly. See what I'm, and so with Marvel, it's so huge. There's so many movies, there's so many projects. It's gotta be difficult to not have those actors going back and forth between.
But keeping
Marvel
everything so in house, like, kind of takes away a little bit for me, at least. Like gaining your attachment to the character, right? So it's like, I really love this character's this, and if they go and play in something that's completely outside of the geek universe and they go to Ocean's 15 or something like that, I don't really care. But when it's so close in house, and you know how I mean, like under the Disney umbrella.
So yeah, like Chris Evans finally got his Star Wars role, but he's like the hero. And we would all be like, all right, it's just Captain America.
Yeah, it's Captain. Exactly. That's exactly right. Like if they Robert Downey Jr. is in the Star Wars universe now, like I don't know if I'd love that.
I would not like that at all.
Yeah,
I would.
But it seems like they're playing very close together right now.
Robert Downey Jr. would just be Robert Downey Jr. in Star Wars. Like that's all it would be.
Like he just is Robert Downey Jr. from Earth.
Yeah. He's like, you don't need a thermal reactor. I got an arc reactor for you. Like, what are you doing?
He would. I don't know. I don't know about that.
He would redesign the hell out of everything. He's like, this is also retro upgrades, hollow screens, get rid of the stupid helmets.
What else? What else we got today, David?
So Matt, he has details on character of the week. So Matt,
yes,
here we go.
So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about a conversation we have on our Instagram with the Star Wars Stuff Podcast Instagram. And every week we have a voting on a couple different characters that is chosen by the team. And we we determine one character that you guys vote on that we all get to and then the winner of it, which we talk about on the podcast. Sorry, that was really hard for me to say. I don't know what that was
It
about.
was a little difficult, but you got there. You got there, and that's all that matters.
I love that you guys were on that journey with me, because it was hard. It was hard. Now, Colin was going to talk about it on the podcast, but we were having connectivity issues because he's in Chicago visiting family. So we don't have to worry about that. He just had a couple of legends and canon facts he wanted me to mention. But before I do that, I will, I'll talk about, Yaddle's existence. So if you don't know who Yaddle is, she existed and was born 509 years before the Battle of Yavin or BBY.
She was young.
She is,
She was
What's
kind of
that?
young.
She was in the younger side. Yeah.
You see that red hair? Come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
She's got hair. Yeah, yep. And she was just over half a meter tall, so not much. She was technically had a better posture than Yoda, obviously, because of the ears.
Wait. Before you go on, seriously though, is this
Okay.
what Yoda may have looked like when he was younger? Like, was his hair this long when he could have been younger?
Well, it's
You know what
kind
I
of
mean?
difficult to find research on the species that can't be named because we've only seen it 3 times in Star Wars universe.
Gotcha.
So any information outside of like
Wait, is this a
canon
picture
is
of
really
Bryce
hard.
Dallas Howard? Oh,
Yeah, before her skincare routine that she does every night. This is prior to it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna start off with Legends facts, and then we move into canon because Legends is not nearly as important. The warlord Granta Omega released a bioweapon that would have destroyed the city of Natan, which is I can't even begin to describe what that is to you because that's a whole other podcast. But that's an event in Legends that she was participating in, and if she hadn't had sacrificed herself, and this is where she supposedly succumbed to death, she absorbed a bioweapon with the help of the Force, and she was killed instantaneously. So she kind of like spontaneously combusted.
But she was able to take the full
yeah.
like force of
Yeah.
it into herself and then kill it. Okay, that's pretty.
Right.
That's pretty awesome.
Like that one, I can't remember what movie it was, but where Wanda like puts like a force field around that one guy with the bomb. I think it was Civil War, and he blows himself up.
Yeah,
kind of like that. Yaddle went from a Padawan Padawan, and then goes straight to Jedi Master. And that's how she held her role on the Jedi Council. I can't tell you at what age she did that because
okay.
I just know she went straight from Padawan to on the council. I don't know how that happened. We can get into that later.
yeah. And
We might find that out with Tales of the Jedi here.
We need to know things. Yeah, she was the Jedi Master of Oppo Renesis. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't because I've only ever seen it written down, never said out loud. He was widely considered to be one of the wisest members of the council. Yeah. She knew several force powers, including the Morocro, which allowed her to slow her opponent's body functions, kind of like if you were to like stun your opponent, unlike first-person shooter games. Kind of like the way in Battlefront 2, Kylo Ren can kind of like freeze people temporarily. It's very similar to that in the way that the motions of it she can control. And she can slow down bodily functions to the point of death. She can stop your heart from.
Sounds like me after Taco Bell.
Right. That's cool. Yeah. But he also wanted me to mention some behind the scenes stuff. So I have the idea of Yaddle came from concept art from a younger looking version of Yoda made by artist Ian McCraig. So that's where the classic hair came from, or in the color, the auburn hair color. And then the swoop of it was based off of concept art, which would have been cool if I had preloaded, but Colin kind of dropped this on me. So I don't have it. But yeah, that's Yaddle in canon. Other stuff about her that like behind the scenes wise, she's only seen in live action in the Phantom Menace. We see her on the Jedi Council, and then she perishes sometime between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones in that one battle I told you about on Natan. I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah,
Yaddle.
that's Yaddle, everybody. But
And
just
at some
imagine Yaddle with white hair, and that's Yoda in his like early 50s.
So at a celebration when they showed the trailer to everybody, whenever Yaddle is there fighting Dooku, everybody screamed. Like that got a huge reaction from the crowd, was seeing Yaddle in action, because it was like, oh my gosh, that's right, we haven't seen her do this. And
Let's do that guy with the long neck.
I just think it's great that it's like, okay, we got Grogu. Grogu's killing it. Let's do some more. Okay, but now we're gonna bring back Yaddle, so the kids can see Yaddle, be like, oh look, it's just like, you know what I mean. So I don't know, like
it's one instance to show that they're listening. So like once Grogu came about, everyone's biggest question was, is this a baby with Yaddle? So Dave Filoni and everybody involved were like, okay, what's a big question mark that people have now? What's a character they really want to see? Let's bring it to life. It's an example that someone there is listening a little bit.
I think it's Filoni.
I can't wait to see Yaddle on the screen. I mean, she's been one of the biggest question marks of all time.
Well, if you're looking for more information on Yaddle, there's the Star Wars High Republic books, and the Out of the Shadows book. Yaddle is mentioned in that one. Ooh. So you can go if you want to learn more about.
But is she Mama? Is she Mama? That's what I want to know.
She's not Mama.
I can't.
Not the Mama.
Not the Mama.
She is, or in fact, or isn't the Mama. But yeah. I can say that you will be happily surprised when you hear Yaddle mention that.
All right, I'll check it out.
Could you imagine if that's like the reveal? I don't know how I'd feel about that if they did that.
Well, it could be Yaddle maybe saving Grogu.
Well, I'm down for that. That sounds like
I'd say you can go listen to the Out of the Shadows book.
I say the odds that they don't know each other, or that the odds that they don't have some sort of an intimate relationship, being that they're the only three beings that we know of that are canonized currently, that of that species we don't even know the name of, right? I think they have to. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how
it plays out. And when does Tales of the Jedi drop again?
October 26th.
I said it super slow because I knew.
I knew too. Awesome. October 26th.
But yeah,
and if you guys do go out and Google young Yoda, here's a picture that pops up.
Yeah, that's like a green Stewie Griffin, like with cool long hair and pointy ears.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Do you see like kind of a bit of Stewie Griffin in there, don't you, though?
I do.
It's kind of not okay. I don't know how to feel about it.
I think it's because the hair starts so far back on the head. I mean, I can kind of see.
I think it's his heavy eyebrows and the lack of wrinkles on his face.
That's
amazing. I don't like it.
What was the character from Lord of the Rings? The My Precious character?
Spiegel.
It looks like Spiegel if he was like Spiegel went Hulk.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad Colin's not here to do his voice, because that would make it scary.
All right,
guys. So that's pretty much all I had. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to add to this great podcast?
I'm just ready for the next episode of Andor. I'm excited for what's about to happen. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and if you guys still want to keep the party going, we're going to go over to the Geekcast and talk about Andor, She-Hulk, Hot D, Rings of Power. So nice. we talk a lot of Hot D over there on the Geekcast.
House of the Dragon, that's what he's talking about, everyone.
Yeah. So, come check it out. We love Hot D. Everybody loves Hot D. No. Yeah. But yeah, come check us out on the Geekcast, Countdown City Geekcast. We'll be going live here probably in 20-25 minutes. But I love being on this one too. And I love you guys. And I love the Star Wars talk. And it's always nice.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Matty B. And of course, you can find our podcast on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast, on Twitter at Stuff Pod. You can search us up on TikTok. You can email us at starwarsstuffpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to help us out, you can always go to Apple Podcasts and write a review. Listeners have been writing tons of reviews lately, and they're awesome. They're fun to read. Also, make sure to give us 5 stars. You can also go to Spotify, give us 5 stars there, and also on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the notify bell. We've had a lot of people subscribing, so thank you so much for that. And for Matty B, Matt, James, my name is David, and may the force be with you.
Always.
Always. Also, David, you didn't mention your Stormtrooper helmet giveaway, but okay.
No, I didn't.